Dear compatriots, 1st October each year is an opportunity for us to reflect and thank God for his endless blessings on our country. It is also time for us collectively to remember the sacrifices made by our founders and great leaders first, by soldiers, by distinguished public servants, by traditional leaders, by our workers, sacrifices on which Nigeria has been built over the 59 years since independence in 1960, and rededicate ourselves to attaining the goals which we have set for ourselves, a united, prosperous, and purposeful nation in the face of the 21st century opportunities and challenges. In the first 4 years, the majority of Nigerians have committed to change for the better. Indeed, this administration was re-elected by Nigerians on a mandate to deliver positive and enduring change through maintaining our national security, restoring sustainable and inclusive economic growth and development, and fighting corruption against all internal and external threats. This change can only be delivered if we are united in purpose as individuals and as a nation. We must all remain committed to achieving this positive and enduring change. As I stated 4 years ago, change does not just happen. We must change our lawless habits, our attitude to public office, and public trust. Simply put, to bring about change, we must change ourselves by being law-abiding citizens. Good governance and economic development cannot be sustained without an enabling environment of peace and security. In the last 4 years, we have combated the terrorist scourge of Boko Haram. We owe a debt of gratitude to our gallant men and women in arms, through whose efforts we have been able to achieve the present results. We are also grateful to our neighbors and allies within the region and across the world who have supported us on this front. The capacity of our armed forces to defend our territorial integrity continues to be enhanced by the acquisition of military hardware, as well as continued improvements in the working conditions of our servicemen and women. The Ministry of Police Affairs has been resuscitated to oversee the development and implementation of strategies to enhance internal security. My recent assent to the Nigerian Police Trust Fund Establishment Act has created a legal framework to support our police with increased fiscal resources to enhance their law enforcement capabilities. These initiatives are being complemented by the ongoing recruitment of 10,000 constables into the Nigerian police force. This clearly demonstrates our commitment to arrest the incidents of armed robbery, kidnapping, and other violent crimes across our nation. We remain equally resolute in our efforts to combat militant attacks on our oil and gas facilities in the Niger Delta and accelerate the Ogoni cleanup to address long-standing environmental challenges in that region. The recent redeployment of the Niger Delta Development Commission from the Office of the Secretary to the Government of the Federation to the Ministry of Niger Delta Affairs underscores our commitment to enhance the living standards of our communities in the Niger Delta through coordinated and appropriate programs. Our attention is increasingly being focused on cyber crimes and the abuse of technology through hate speech and other divisive material being propagated on social media. Whilst we uphold the constitutional rights of our people to freedom of expression and association, where the purported exercise of these rights infringes on the rights of other citizens or threatens to undermine our national security, we will take firm and decisive action. In this regard, I reiterate my call for all to exercise restraint, tolerance, and mutual respect in airing their grievances and frustrations. Whilst the ongoing national discourse on various political and religious issues is healthy and welcome, we must not forget the lessons of our past, lessons that are most relevant on a day such as this. The path of hatred and distrust only leads to hostility and destruction. I believe that the vast majority of Nigerians would rather tread the path of peace and prosperity as we continue to uphold and cherish our unity. This administration inherited a skewed economy where oil sector comprised only 8% of gross domestic product, but contributed 70% of government revenue and 90% foreign exchange earnings over the years. Past periods of relatively high economic growth were driven by our reliance on oil sector revenues to finance our demand for imported goods and services. Regrettably, previous governments abandoned the residual investment-driven non-oil sector, which constituted 40% of gross domestic product and comprised agriculture, livestock, agro-processing, arts, entertainment, mining and manufacturing activities that provide millions of jobs for able-bodied Nigerians and utilize locally available raw materials and labor for production. To address this imbalance, our commitment to achieving economic diversification has been at the heart of our economic strategies under the Economic Recovery and Growth Plan, which I launched on 5th of April 2017. The Medium-Term Development Plan charted the trajectory for our economy to exit from recession and return to the path of sustainable, diversified, and inclusive growth for Nigerians. Pursuant to these reforms, the economy has recovered and we have had 9 successive quarters of growth since our exit from recession. The exchange rate in the last 3 years has remained stable, with robust reserves of $42.5 billion United States dollars, up from $23 billion United States dollars in October 2016. Learning from the mistakes of the past, this administration is committed to responsibly managing our oil wells endowments. We will continue to prudently save our oil income and invest more in the non-oil job-creating sectors. In this regard, we are significantly increasing investment in critical infrastructure. Last year, capital releases only commenced with the approval of the budget in June 2018. However, as at 20th June this year, up to 1.74 trillion naira has been released for capital projects in the 2018 fiscal year. Implementation of the 2019 capital budget, which was only approved in June 2019, will be accelerated to ensure that critical priority projects are completed or substantially addressed. The Ministry of Finance, Budget and National Planning has been directed to release 600 billion naira for capital expenditure in the next 3 months. To maximize impact, we shall continue to increasingly welcome and encourage private capital for infrastructural development through public-private partnership. Through the Road Infrastructure Tax Credit Scheme, which I initiated in January this year, we are giving incentives to private sector inflow of over 205 billion naira in 19 Nigerian roads and bridges of 794.4 kilometers in 11 states of the Federation. As we push to diversify the economy, we still remain focused on optimizing the revenues generated from the oil and the gas sector. We will, working with the legislature, soon pass the Petroleum Industry Bill and amendments to the Deep Offshore Act and Inland Basin Production Sharing Contracts Act into law to ensure government obtains a fair share of oil revenues whilst encouraging private sector investment. We will also continue our fight against illegal bunkering of crude oil and the smuggling of refined petroleum products across our borders, including the diligent prosecution and conviction of offenders found guilty of these acts. Whilst Nigeria remains committed to free and fair continental and international trade, we will not hesitate to take all necessary steps to tackle illegal smuggling, transshipment, and other predatory trade practices that destroy jobs in our country. We are resolute in reforming the power sector. In August this year, we launched the Presidential Power Initiative to modernize the national grid in 3 phases, starting from 5 gigawatts to 7 gigawatts, then to 11 gigawatts by 2023, and finally 25 gigawatts afterwards. This program, in partnership with the German government and Siemens, will provide end-to-end electrification solutions that will resolve our transmission and distribution challenges. The program will also look to localize the development and assembly of smart meters, as well as operations and maintenance capabilities of transmission and distribution infrastructure. I am pleased with the improved interagency collaboration between the Ministry of Power and the regulators in the banking and power sectors to ensure that electricity sales, billings, and collections are automated and become cashless. These initiatives are important to ensure that the technical and collection losses in the sector are substantially reduced. I remain confident that Nigerians will have affordable and uninterrupted electricity supply in the not-too-distant future. Our efforts to improve the power sector will complement other infrastructure investments projects under the Presidential Infrastructure Development Fund, which is investing in the Mambila Power Plant project, as well as key economic road infrastructure such as the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway, Second Niger Bridge, and Abuja-Kano Expressway. The first set of these projects remain on track to be completed by 2022. Our journey to food security and self-sufficiency is well underway. We have made remarkable progress in almost all segments of the agriculture value chain, from fertilizers to rice to animal feed production. We shall sustain these policies to ensure additional investments are channeled, thereby creating more jobs in the sector. We must not go back to the days of importing food and thereby exporting jobs. Our commitment to achieving macroeconomic stability and economic diversification has been underscored by the merger of the Ministry of Finance with the Ministry of Budget and the National Planning. This combined ministry has the important mandate to enhance the management of domestic and global fiscal risks, coordinate policies with the trade and monetary authorities, raise and deploy revenues to fund budgeted expenditure, and integrate annual budgets and medium-term fiscal strategies. With this, our revenue-generating and reporting agencies will come under much greater scrutiny. Going forward, the new performance management framework will reward exceptional revenue performance, while severe consequences will attend failures to achieve agreed revenue targets. I recently constituted an Economic Advisory Council to advise me on inclusive and sustainable macroeconomic, fiscal, and monetary policies. This independent body will work with relevant cabinet members and the heads of key monetary, fiscal, and trade agencies to ensure we remain on track as we strive for collective prosperity. However, we are also committed to ensure that the inconvenience associated with any painful policy adjustments is moderated, such that the poor and the vulnerable who are most at risk do not bear the brunt. Our ongoing 500 billion naira sufficient intervention program continues to target these vulnerable groups through the homegrown school feeding program, government economic empowerment program, Empower Job Creation Program, loans for traders and artisans, conditional cash transfers to the poorest families, and social housing scheme. To institutionalize these impactful programs, we created the Ministry for Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management, and Social Development, which shall consolidate and build on our achievements to date. To the beneficiaries of these programs, I want to reassure you that our commitment to social inclusion will only increase. Our population growth rate remains among the highest in the world, presenting both challenges as well as opportunities. It is our collective responsibility to ensure that we provide adequate resources to meet the basic needs of our teeming youth. Accordingly, we shall continue to invest in education, health, water and sanitation, as well as food security, to ensure that their basic needs are met, while providing them with every opportunity to live peaceful, prosperous, and productive lives. On fighting corruption, our institutional reforms to enforce the Treasury single account policy, introduce the Whistleblowers Initiative, expand the coverage of the Integrated Payroll Personnel and Information System, as well as the Government Integrated Management Information System, have saved billions of naira over the last 4 years and deterred the rampant theft and mismanagement of the public funds that have plagued our public service. The Ministry of Justice, the Independent Corrupt Practices Commission, and the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission will continue to address this menace. We are determined to ensure that transparency and good governance are institutionalized in public service. We must commit to installing a culture of good governance in all we do. This administration has fought against corruption by investigating and prosecuting those accused of embezzlement and the misuse of public resources. We have empowered teams of prosecutors, assembled detailed databases of evidence, traced the proceeds of crimes, and accelerated recovery of stolen funds. Furthermore, we partnered with our friends abroad to combat tax evasion, smuggling, terrorism, and illicit financial flows. In June 2018, I assented to the Mutual Assistance in Criminal Matters Act to provide a domestic legal framework for obtaining international assistance in criminal matters. This measure has already strengthened our law enforcement agencies in obtaining evidence, investigating suspects, and facilitating the recovery, forfeiture, and confiscation of property implicated as proceeds of crime. An example is the $300 million United States dollars recently identified as part of the Abacha money laundering case, working closely with the government of the United States of America. The Federal Ministry of Justice is working with the United States Department of Justice to conclude a memorandum of understanding to expedite the repatriation of these funds. The P&ID Arbitral Award has underscored the manner in which significant economic damage has been caused by the past activities of a few corrupt and unpatriotic Nigerians. The policies that we are putting in place today are to ensure such criminal and unpatriotic acts do not go without consequences. Our renewed partnership with the Ninth National Assembly will facilitate the swift passage of enabling laws that will institutionalize these anti-corruption efforts in our criminal justice system. In this connection, I call upon our states to intensify their own efforts to instill greater fiscal transparency and accountability, and to ensure greater fiscal efficiency and optimum use of our very scarce resources. The blight of corruption is fighting back. Nevertheless, this is a battle that we shall see through, and this is a war which we shall win by the grace of God. I will also call upon all Nigerians from every walk of life to combat corruption at every turn by choosing to question and confront corrupt practices, by reporting unethical practices, or through whistleblowing. Together, we can overcome corruption and will no longer be a country defined by corruption. Fellow Nigerians, let me reiterate my call for unity across our dear nation. Nigeria will emerge from our present challenges stronger and more resilient than ever, but only if all of us join hands to entrench good governance, foster inclusive economic development, and defend and protect our nation from all those who would wish us ill. I thank you all. I thank you most sincerely and wish you a happy Independence anniversary.